right. Welcome back to Unlocking Growth, the podcast where we dive into the minds of influential business coaches with diverse backgrounds and methodologies. And I'm really, really excited about our guest today. I'm chatting with Lucas Walker. He has 11 years almost experience in his consulting business, and he really has a knack for innovative solutions. He actually has a pretty awesome record. He's boasting less than a 1% failure rate and scaling over 100 companies. And he's really the visionary behind Lucas Walker Consulting. And I have a personal relationship with Lucas because he's actually a former consultant of mine. I actually hired Lucas for my business, so I know we'll have a great conversation. He also brings a really unique perspective because he has a background in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Nailed it. I'm excited to be here, Brian.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. How is that for an intro? You feel good about that?
I feel really good about that. You probably oversold me, so I got to back down expectations so I can exceed them now.
Okay. Well, I'll set the bar high, and then we'll just that way if people drop off, they'll see the best parts.
That's a good approach. There you go.
Yeah.
Start with dessert first. Give them the vegetables later.
I mean, I'm sure this is what you tell your clients all the time, over promise and under deliver, right?
Something like that.
Well, how are you today, man?
I'm doing great. It's getting to be a nice snowy day here in Springfield, Missouri. So we'll see if we get snowmageddon or it blows over, but I'm doing great and kicking off the new year in style.
Awesome. Love it. You and I are both local. I've been fortunate enough to have guests all across the country, but it's fun having conversations with people that are in California or, Florida, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day. Not so much here. Not now.
No, not today. Yeah.
That's okay.
But we get all four seasons. The people in California I talk to, the clients, they're all like, well, you get at least all four seasons. And that's a big benefit to be in the Midwest.
Yeah. We don't need fake snow for Christmas. So
nope.
That's great. Awesome. Well, let's jump into it, man. I know a lot of your background, but our listeners don't. So I'd love for you to just, tell people a little bit about why you started getting into consulting, why you're so passionate about helping business owners to scale their businesses and remain profitable.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I did what a lot of consultants and coaches do is I'm trying to travel back in time and save a younger me. So I was working 70 hours a week for 7 years, grinding my face off, making another business $1 million a year. And it got to be really exhausting for me. And I realized I was just a cog in their money-making machine. And basically, I found out that it wasn't any safer working for someone else than for myself. And I liked to work hard. And so I instead focused all the energy, how do I start my own business? And in that process, I realized there weren't a lot of good resources out there to really make it easy for me to start my own business. I had to figure a lot out from the ground up. And I thought, if I have this problem, other people do too. So I had a sales background. I started off helping people grow their sales. Now they increased their sales, but now their capacity on the operational side, they couldn't keep up with the sales that they were having. So now I helped out with the operations and building systems, and they kind of leapfrog back and forth. And then the key part also is that the owner is a unique part of that. The vision they want for their business is a unique part of that. So adjusting all these pieces became what my business grew out of. Over time, I added financial mastery and other elements on top too.
Well, and I love you talk about it's safe. It's just as safe as working for somebody else.
Yeah, it's safer in a lot of ways.
Well, honestly, yeah, it really is, and I think that you don't understand that unless you've been a business owner yourself, right? Because there's a lot of fear with people that are getting into business for themselves around security and stability, right? I sought out being in business for myself so that I could create stability. Which sounds crazy to anybody that's not in business, right?
Yeah. I think that there's this big myth that being an entrepreneur is a very risk-taking venture, but I couldn't disagree more, actually. You think about like Thomas Edison, kind of discovering the light bulb. The rumor is he tried, 1,000 ways to find the specific materials that would work. He wasn't just hitting his head against a wall. He knew the way that was going to work and he was headed in the right direction. Just a matter of figuring out the exact metal that was going to work. That's what it should be like starting your own business. It shouldn't be this random jump off a cliff, I hope it works out. It should be, I can see it's going to work out. I don't know all the details. If I keep going in this direction, I know it's going to work out. It shouldn't feel risky. It should feel actually pretty safe. And doing not that should feel riskier of having those regrets and missing out on life.
I think you said that perfectly. I'm sure a lot of what you do is help people break their systems,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you have to, right? No system today is going to scale infinitely towards the future. Your vision will, right? You talked about seeing your client's vision through the operations, but your systems don't. So
Yeah.
so how have you had such a massive success rate? I mean, that's huge. You pretty much are a gold star business consultant because everyone you work with does successfully grow their business and scale.
Yeah, I think that there's an interesting problem that can happen in the consulting and the business space, in that it's really easy to take advantage of people. So, someone starting a business, they don't really know very much information. They don't know what they don't know. They know they don't know a lot. And it's really easy to show that person a shiny object and trick them into buying that thing. And I would say a large part of the business market right now is focused on that. There are a lot of books out there that are a shiny concept, a lot of videos, a lot of things that don't actually make an important change in an entrepreneur's business. And early on, because my entire business depended on me making this work, everyone I worked with, I had to basically make them as much money or more than they were paying me, or they had to fire me. And so I came up with a very bootstrapped approach of, I didn't have a time to just pontificate or read out of a business book a theory. I had to figure out what actually applied directly in their business. And now repeating that over and over again, I've seen these themes about what are the actual levers to pull to change things, to make things get better. And overall, that the number one thing I would say is the most important thing is, as an entrepreneur, is building those skills. You have a series of skills, and once those skills are in your back pocket, they're going to run automatically. You're going to do very, very well. But if you don't have those skills, you're going to have a struggle every time the situation comes up over and over again.
Well, and you're very tactical in your approach, right? I mean, I want to highlight that. Obviously, I have a little bit more insight because you were a coach of mine,
Mm-hmm.
and I will say I've had now I'm up to 7 different business coaches or consultants in my professional career, just for the current business run that I'm on now.
Yeah,
And
wonderful.
out of those 7, you are the one that I had the longest.
Mm.
And I think the reason why is because you take that bootstrap approach. So because um, business owners love talking about business,
Uh-huh.
and it's easy to fall into that trap of, man, that felt like a really great conversation, and then I leave it and I'm like, but yeah, did I actually accomplish anything, or did I just really have a great conversation with a cool coach that really gets business, right?
Yeah.
Versus, I remember being uncomfortable in our sessions and you getting really, really strategic and tactical about, hey, what's this lever? How are we going to move it? And
Mm-hmm.
digging in, right? Where
Yeah.
mindset's important, all that business talk is important. Mindset's kind of the anchor of everything. But I think some coaches lean too much into that, and it's all sizzle and not enough steak.
Yeah, you couldn't have said that any better. I totally agree. And I do make clients uncomfortable sometimes. I try not to. I try to identify strategically when is a time that maybe talking about other things can be deflectionary. That's really common in these client interactions. There's certain peaceableness that goes back and forth of staying on a conversational, friendly tone. But a friend might not poke you because they're your friend. Someone is paying me sometimes to occasionally say, like, hey, I'm going to poke you here, what's going on. And that's a scary part. Every time I do that, I'm always thinking this person can totally fire me if they're not ready to hear this sort of piece of feedback. And usually it goes well, but sometimes people are like, that's a lot of work, I don't want to do that, or that didn't feel good.
Well, and I'd like to say that we weren't friends until we stopped working together, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah, it's a
then
lot
it was
easier
like
that way.
a lot easier, yeah. And now what a great foundation, because you weren't going to take any BS from me because you had already seen a peek behind the curtain. Um, but yeah, that's I love that approach, and the bootstrap approach is so important. And I think that there are so many different, like you said, there's so many different things that business owners could throw money at that are educational. books, models, all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I heard this in a class actually. Someone mentioned that education without implementation is simply entertainment.
Mm. Yes, that's totally true. And it's
I
easy to fall into that.
Oh man, because
I'm
there's so many
guilty of it.
ways to be excited about getting education and being learning based and plugging into all the things. But yeah, very few put it into implementation. So I want to talk about the financial side because I know I kind of had an agenda going into this, Lucas, because you were fundamental in me changing my financial systems and getting to a point of profitability instead of just revenue, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what caused you? Because I don't believe you started there in your consulting business. What caused you to really identify that as a gap for a lot of your clients?
Yeah, that was interesting. My consulting business, I started from scratch. And so the journey I went through has been the same journey a lot of my clients. So I started my own business from scratch, and sales was my first problem. So I started to solve that problem and sell my services. Then capacity was my next problem. I started to figure out that and solve that problem. And the next was the profitability, knowing that just working harder didn't make the money necessarily math out exactly right. So each of these problems I've solved within my own business, and I've spent a lot of time, took in a lot of information, and then I can consolidate that and pass it out to my clients and then get feedback and learn more and more about it across the iteration. So for me, the financial piece was a key piece that I was later to the party getting started. But now I recognize that if a business doesn't work out on paper, it will not work out in the real world. You can do the business math on paper, run the calculations, and say, okay, I'm going to sell this many units, make this much profit. Is that a feasible number of units to sell or not sell? You can do all that. You don't have to work for 5 years, grinding your face off and be like, oh, that didn't work out. You can do it on paper and make it work. And it usually doesn't work on paper the first time. So you have to make some changes and maybe you have to raise your pricing. What value do you have to add for that pricing to make sense? So for me, it came out of that own space of my own need to get stronger and better and move out of Excel sheets and into QuickBooks, to move off of back of paper math as the business got bigger into bigger and bigger systems. And realizing with my clients, that's made a giant difference. The people who were struggling to get by before, not able to pay themselves very much, now run very profitable businesses where their own finances aren't a stress. They can focus on just the business and knowing that the money takes care of itself.
I mean, what percentage of clients and business owners that you talk to on a regular basis are either not paying themselves or not paying themselves what they're worth?
I would say 99%. and the double funny thing is almost 99% of them, part of it is because they're not charging what they're worth.
Mm.
And so it's so interesting is that they're delivering a premium quality product at a bargain basement price. And it typically takes me a decent time of talking with them. And it's never out of a point of greed to charge more. It's just, if you don't charge more, you can't stay in business. You'll have to stop helping these people that you love to help so much. You have to charge more or stop helping anybody. It becomes a non-negotiable. And then the funniest part to me is, I would say almost without an exception, everyone I've ever worked with that's raised their prices, none of their customers cared at all.
Yeah.
They're like, you're undercharging me for 5 years. Like, you should have raised them 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's like, thanks for the 5 years of cheap, great service, right?
Yeah. And the 3 grumpy customers who were like, oh, I can't believe it so much, I'm going to leave. Like, they weren't that loyal of customers anyways. You'll bring in 3 new ones that are a good fit. So yeah, the finances is a really important part, and charging what they're worth and paying themselves is a key part, because the number one goal of the business is to make money. If you're not making money, you're not in business anymore. You can't do the good that you want to do in the community. You can't do any of the other stuff you want to do if you're not bringing in enough money.
Well, and I'll go one step further there. If your business is making money, but you're not paying yourself appropriately, then your business is not making the money that it needs, right? Because if you couldn't replace yourself with someone that has your skill level and be able to support a salary or a wage that's appropriate, then there's something that's missing, right?
100%. I think that so one myth I talked about earlier was that entrepreneurialism is being risky. Another one that's really key to me and dear to my heart is I should be reinvesting in my business. That's a really giant myth that many people use as an excuse for not making any profit.
Hmm.
They're spending all of their money and saying they're reinvesting where they should be paying themselves and just running a leaner business. An investment is money you put into something where you generate a return on that investment that you can ideally calculate. Like you put money in a CD, you take out 6% later. Money you put in a safe under your bed and you open up later and it's gone, that wasn't really an investment. That was just disappeared. So an investment is I'm taking this training, which will mean I can charge more. I'm doing something specific that generates a return. But most of the time, reinvesting in my business means I'm making no profit, but I have a good excuse. That's okay. I'm supposed to make no profit.
Yeah, that's not investing. I love the way that you highlight that because there's no return there. Right? You're not
No.
putting it into anything. It's just it's a lack of something that's needed. Yeah, but it's so common. I mean, why do you think it's so common among entrepreneurs and business owners at multiple levels to quote unquote invest in their own business or you know um, pull their own salary as a way to make the business work?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think part of it is it's just a foreign land. You know, there's a lot of models out there for what going to work in the workforce looks like. Essentially, we grow up, we go to school. That's a beginning model of go sit in this place, do what you're told, do the work you're told to do, show up the next day, get along with people. This entrepreneur is much more self directed. And so it's hard to see real models because the ones that you do see tend to be on TV, the sort of the YouTube stars that are really portraying a lifestyle that's not accurate to the day to day grind. And then you talk to other entrepreneurs. A lot of us have this kind of Wizard of Oz thing where it all looks okay on the surface, but underneath things aren't going very well. So, as an outsider walking through that world, you get this vibe where everything is kind of a reflection, a mirage, and it's hard to get to the truth of what things are that are going on. So that learning curve really takes a long time to figure that out and to bust through those myths. And I think that when I work with people, that's a really big part of it is telling them what things are normal and what things aren't normal. A lot of them think that they're uniquely flawed, that they have this unique problem that's only them, but really it's very universal. And there's a lot of relief they get of, oh, you mean other people also have trouble hiring and retaining employees? They don't just leave again? Other people don't really have a good way to deliver quality services time and time again. Other people have work-life balance struggles. I'm not just not getting enough done because I'm not working hard enough. So I think there's a lot of myth in the space, and it's hard to bust through that for someone brand new.
Well, and it's an epidemic of imposter syndrome. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, I felt that personally because nobody wants to be vulnerable with colleagues or their clients. Are like, oh yeah, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Right, I'm just faking it until I make it, or I don't know how to run a budget. I just know how to do X, Y, Z service really good. Like I'm really
Yeah.
good at lawn care, or I'm really good at HVAC, or I'm really good at real estate, or I'm really good at consulting, or whatever it is, right? But they don't want to admit that they have skill gaps. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why having a relationship that's vulnerable with a business coach is so important because it allows you to, you know, admit I don't know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and most of the time, people are really good at what they do, and that's a good thing. But that doesn't mean that they're really good at every aspect of their business.
That's so true. And I think there's a lot of gravity then to go towards where you feel good. I'm thinking of a client in particular. That person was really good at the manual labor of their job. As they hired other employees, they didn't want to really provide training and support for those employees. They gravitated back towards the manual labor they were comfortable with. To try to step into that CEO chair and sit in that chair instead to manage a business, the finances, build systems, that was foreign. And so there's this gravity to go back in to what they're already comfortable with. I think that we all feel that at times. Like, if I don't feel good about this part of it, I'm going to avoid this and do the stuff I do feel good about. I'll just do the other stuff later. But I'm guilty of it too. Getting back to that stuff that we don't feel as comfortable with and building those skills is an important part of being well-rounded.
Well, that problem comes up too, even with your people. Even if you have a larger scale business, because what makes someone a rock star salesperson doesn't make them a rock star sales manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a VP of sales or whatever it is, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, that's excellently put. Excellently put.
Yeah.
I mean, what and I know we could talk all day long, Lucas. We
Right.
could. But what would you say is, some words of wisdom for people that are listening to the show that are either struggling in their business or they're looking for a way to help them unlock more growth potential, and they're just not happy with where they're at? What would be the one thing that you would impress upon them to consider focusing on in their business?
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna break this down very structured here.
Perfect.
So one is to be successful, you need skills. If the skills come naturally, you're all set. If they don't, you need the knowledge pillars that those skills are based on. Without those knowledge pillars, you'll be unable to have those skills. So if you want to learn to play guitar, if you don't know what the notes are or what timing is, you're going to fail. You have to learn those basic pieces. Now you can learn the rest of the steps. And so that's I totally believe that a skill is based on knowledge that is implemented over time. So you get better and better reactions. That's what the skill is based on. Being successful is based on having the right sets of skills. Now, the problem is that when you're trying to get to that next level, there are infinite areas that you can have problems. And it's out of all those infinite problems, as the business owner, which one do you focus on? That's the real problem. It's not what's a problem to solve. It's I have 37 pages of problems to solve. Where do I start? And so this is where I think of it as trying to be an emergency room doctor. Someone comes in with a bullet wound over here, a knife stab here, and a shark on their back. What is the first thing that you're going to address as that ER doctor? You can't do them all at once. You're one doctor. The business is the same way. So we have all these problems. What's the one we focus on? That's the overall way I approach it. Now, if you're trying to grow, there are one of two problems. Either you have a sales problem or you have a capacity problem. A sales problem means that you have lots of capacity to do more work. You just need to sell it. A capacity problem would mean that you're selling more work than you can get to. You have to turn work away or not answer phones or do a poor quality of work to try to get to all that work. So if you're stuck, you either have a sales problem or a capacity problem.
Well,
As you keep growing,
the capacity problem is a better one to have, right?
for sure. But as you grow, they basically just leapfrog back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you sell too much work, you have a capacity problem. You get the capacity to catch up to the sales. Now you got to sell again. So it just keeps going back and forth, and it's going to shift. But looking at yourself as the ER doctor, am I having a heart attack or a stroke? You're going to look at, do I have a sales problem or a capacity problem? Once you know that, if you have a sales problem, for example, you should be reading 0 books on managing people, 0 podcasts about how to have a better workplace culture. Everything you're consuming, if it's not on sales or marketing, is not solving your problem. It's entertainment, like you said earlier. Mm. Now, if you have a capacity problem, you should be doing 0 talking to SEO firms or looking at Google Ads or any sales and marketing content, and only focused on the capacity problem.
I love that. I love that advice because it's so it's evergreen, and it means where your focus goes is where that energy is going to be, right? And so it's about having the right focus. Love that. Well, Lucas, I really appreciate you coming in and chatting with me today. It's been a fun conversation. I know that we could probably do 16 episodes and never get bored. If somebody is interested in getting to know you or connecting with you or employing you or getting advice from you, how do they do that? What's the best way for us to get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best place is to get more of my information is just go to consultwithlucas.com. I have a blog on there with lots of videos. The capacity sales I just talked about, I have a video going into more in depth with that I recorded yesterday. They'll be releasing here in a week or two as I get the blog post finished out with it. So consultwithlucas.com, you can consume some free content. My contact info is also on there. You could always reach out and schedule a time to talk if you're looking for some more help. But the free content is consultwithlucas.com.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for tuning in to another insightful episode of Unlocking Growth. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation with Lucas Walker, make sure that you subscribe us, leave us a review, and don't miss out on future episodes where we're going to continue to cover strategies and stories behind unlocking growth. Until next time, I'm Brian Stone signing off, and I'll see you guys later on.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.